Chapter 33, Part 2 of Etiquette. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recorded by Laurie Ann Walden. Etiquette in Society, in Business, in Politics, and at Home, by Emily Post. Chapter 33, Part 2, Dress. Riding clothes. The distorted circus mirror clothes seen on men who know no better are not a bit worse than the riding clothes seen on actresses in our best theaters and moving pictures, who ought to know better. Nothing looks worse than riding clothes made and worn badly, and nothing looks smarter than they when well made and well put on. A riding habit, no matter what the fashion happens to be, is like a uniform, in that it must be made and worn according to regulations. It must above all be meticulously trig and compact. Nothing must be sticking out a thousandth part of an inch that can be flattened in. A riding habit is the counterpart of an officer's uniform. It is not worn so as to make the wearer look pretty. A woman to look well in a habit must be smart, or she is a sight. And nothing contributes so much to the sights we see at present as the attempt to look pretty instead of looking correct. The criticism is not intended for the woman who lives far off in the open country and jumps on a horse in whatever she happens to have on, but for those who dress for looks and ride in the parks of our cities, or walk on the stage and before the camera in scenes meant to represent smart society. To repeat, therefore, the young woman who wants to look pretty should confine her exercise to dancing. She can also hold a parasol over her head and sit in a canoe, or she can be pretty how and where she will, so long as it is not on a horse in the park or hunting field. To mention hunting field is superfluous. The woman who can ride well enough to follow the hounds is too good a sportswoman, too great a lover of good form to be ignorant of the proper outline necessary to smartness of appearance in the saddle. In smartest English society it is not considered best form for a young girl to ride astride in the hunting field or in the park after she is grown. A high-born English girl rides astride as a child, but as soon as she is old enough to be presented at court, she appears at a meet or in the Row in a lady's habit, trigly perfect in fit, and on a side saddle. In America this is an extreme opinion, and it is only among the most fashionable that a young girl, having all her life ridden in a man's saddle, finds the world a joyless place and parents cruel when she is no longer allowed to ride like a boy. But she becomes, in spite of her protests, another who looks divine on a horse. And you can look divine too, if you choose. On second thoughts, the adjective must be qualified. No one looks divine on a horse who is not thin as a shingle. But since diet produces a shingle shape, and every one strong-minded, or vain enough, can diet, you need only care enough to count your calories and be as slim as you please. Next, the best habit possible. And best habits are expensive, and there are no second best. A habit is good, or it is bad. Whatever the present fashion may be, have your habit utterly conventional. Don't wear checks, or have slant pockets, or eccentric cuffs or lapels. Don't have the waist pinched in. Choose a plain, dark, or dust color. A night blue that has a few white hairs in the mixture does not show dust as much as a solid dark color, and a medium weight close material holds its shape better than a light loose weave. You may wear a single white carnation, or a few violets in your buttonhole, but no other trimming. Keep the idea of perfect clothes for men in mind. Get nothing that the smartest man would not wear, and you can't go wrong. Get boots like those of a man, low-heeled, and with a straight line from heel to back of top. Don't have the tops wider than absolutely necessary not to bind, and don't have them curved or fancy in shape. Be sure that there is no elbow sticking out like a horse's hock at the back of the boot, and don't have a corner on the inside edge of the sole. And don't try to wear a small size. When you put your habit on. First, hair. Never mind if you look like Madame Récamier with your hair fluffed and like a skinned rabbit with it tight back. Tight, flat back it must go. Brush it smooth as you can, braid it or coil it about level with the top of your ears, and wind it in a doormat, not a knob in the back. If you have a great quantity of hair, you should take all the inner part of it, coil it on top of your head so it will go under your hat out of your way. Then take the outer edge of it and braid or wind it as flat as possible. A large bun at the back of the head is almost as bad as hair drawn over the ears at the side. If you have short hairs likely to blow, you must wear a hunting hair net. And if it is bobbed, it must be drawn back into a silk riding net, and made to look trim. Correct riding clothes are not fashion, but form. Whether coat skirts are long or short, full or plain, and waists wasp-like or square, the above admonitions have held for many decades, and are likely to hold for many more. Gloves must be of heavy leather and at least 2 sizes bigger than those ordinarily worn. A hat must fit the head and its shape must be conventional. Never wear a hat that would be incorrect on a man, and don't wear it on the back of your head or over your nose. Wear your stock as tight as you comfortably can, not too tight. Tie it smartly so as to make it flat and neat, and anchor whatever you wear so securely that nothing can possibly come loose. And if you want to see a living example of perfection in riding clothes, go to the next horse show where Miss Belle Beach is riding, and look at her. What clothes to take for a week-end? Unless fashion turns itself upside down, which it is, of course, perfectly capable of doing, elaborate clothes, except evening ones, are entirely useless even in Newport. We have all of us abandoned Paris fashions for country wear in favor of those of England. The Valenciennes insertions and trailing chiffons of some years ago, still seen at watering places in France, have been entirely superseded by country clothes. In going to any fashionable house in the country, you should take a dinner dress for each evening, with stockings and slippers to match. You need a country dress for each day, or if the weather is uncertain, a thick one and 2 thin ones, with a long coat, and a dress suitable for church. This one can perfectly well be a country dress, but not a sports one. If you are not too young and are going to stay in an informal house where you will probably be the only guest, and where it is likely no one will be asked in, a tea gown or 2 should be taken. If you are going especially for a ball, but not given by your hostess, needless to say you take a ball dress and an evening wrap. In the autumn or winter, a fur coat will do double service for coat and wrap. Do not take a big trunk full of all the things you don't need. Don't take sports clothes for all occasions if you are not a sportswoman. But if you do ride, or play tennis or golf, or skate or swim, be sure to take your own clothes and don't borrow other people's. There are plenty of ingeniously arranged week-end trunks, very compact in size, that have a hat compartment, holding from 2 to 6 hats, and plenty of room for a half a dozen dresses and their accessories. When the income is limited. No one can dress well on nothing a year, that must be granted at the outset. But a woman who has talent, taste, and ingenuity can be suitably and charmingly dressed on little a year, especially at present. First of all, to mind wearing a dress many times because it indicates a small bank account, is to exhibit a false notion of the values in life. Any one who thinks well or ill of her in accordance with her income cannot be too quickly got rid of. But worthwhile people are influenced in her disfavor when she has clothes in number and quality out of proportion to her known financial situation. It is tiresome everlastingly to wear black, but nothing is so serviceable, nothing so unrecognizable, nothing looks so well on every occasion. A very striking dress cannot be worn many times without making others, as well as its owner, feel bored at the sight of it. Here comes the zebra, or the cockatoo, is inevitable if a dress of stripes or flamboyant color is worn often. She who must wear one dress through a season, and have it perhaps made over the next, would better choose black or cream color. Or perhaps a certain color suits her, and this fact makes it possible for her habitually to wear it without impressing others with her lack of clothes. But whether her background be black or cerise, it should invariably blend with her whole wardrobe, so that all accessories can be made to do double or quadruple service. Supposing you are a young woman with more beauty than wealth. Let us also suppose you have 3 evening dresses, a blue, a pink, and a green. At the moment you can wear flesh-colored slippers and stockings with everything, which rather weakens the argument. However, a blue fan does not look well with a pink or green dress, nor do the other combinations. Supposing, however, you had instead a cream-colored dress, a flesh-colored, and an orchid one. Flesh-colored slippers look much better with cream and orchid than with either green or blue, at any rate. A watermelon pink fan is lovely in night light with all three, so is a cream one. Or perhaps by changing both fan and slippers, a different effect is produced, since the colors of your clothes are background colors. But nothing really can compare with the utility and smartness of black. Take a black tulle dress, made in the simplest possible way. Worn plain, it is a simple dinner dress. It can have a lace slip to go over it, and make another dress. With a jet harness, meaning merely trimming that can be added at will, it is still another dress. Or it can have a tunic of silver or of gold trimming, and fans, flowers, and slippers in various colors, such as watermelon or emerald, change it again. In fact, a black tulle can be changed almost as easily as though done with a magician's wand. To choose daytime clothes that go with the same hats, shoes, parasols, wrist bags, and gloves is equally important. A snuff-colored dress and a gray one need entirely different accessories. Russet shoes, chamois gloves, and sand-colored hat go also with henna, raspberry, reds, etc., but gray must have gray or white shoes, gloves, and hat, which also go with blues, greens, and violets. Don't get too many clothes. Choose the clothes which you must have carefully, and if you must cut down on elaborate ones. There is scarcely anywhere that you can not fittingly go in plain clothes. Very few, if any, people need fancy things. All people need plain ones. A very beautiful Chicago woman who was always perfectly dressed for every occasion worked out the cost of her own clothes this way. On a sheet of paper, thumb-tacked on the inside of her closet door, she put a complete typewritten list of her dresses and hats, and the cost of each. Every time she put on a dress, she made a pencil mark. By and by, when a dress was discarded, she divided the cost of it by the number of times it had been worn. In this way she found out accurately which were her cheapest and which her most expensive clothes. When getting new ones, she has the advantage of very valuable information, since she avoids the dress that is never put on, which is a bigger handicap for the medium-sized allowance than many women realize. What to wear in a restaurant. Restaurant dress depends upon the restaurant and the city. Because women in New York wear low-neck dresses and no hats, does not mean that those who live in Newtown should do the same, if it is not Newtown's custom. But you must never wear an evening dress and a hat, and never wear a day dress without one. If in the city where you live people wear day clothes in the evening, you can only very slightly differ from them. It is never good form to be elaborately dressed in a public place, except in a box at the opera or at a charity ball. At a wedding, a garden party, or afternoon tea. These are the occasions when elaborate day dresses are appropriate. But if you have very few clothes, you can perfectly well wear any sort of day dress that may be in fashion. A coat and skirt is not appropriate, since a skirt and shirtwaist is and always has been a utility combination. Unless, of course, the waist is of a color to match the skirt, so that it has the appearance of a dress. You need, however, seldom worry about your appearance because you are not as dressed as the others. The time to worry is when you are more dressed than anyone else. For a garden party, a country dress is quite all right, though if you have a very elaborate summer dress, this is the only time you can wear it. No one has to be told what to wear to church. In small country churches, at the seashore, people go to church in country clothes. Otherwise, as everyone knows, one puts on town clothes and gloves. At a formal luncheon in town, one sees every sort of dress from velvet to tailor-made. Certain ladies, older ones usually, who like elaborate clothes, wear them. But younger people are usually dressed in worsted materials or silks that are dull in finish, and that, although they may be embroidered and very expensive, give an effect of simplicity. One should always wear a simpler dress in one's own house than one wears in going to the house of another. A few general remarks. The fault of bad taste is usually in overdressing. Quality, not effect, is the standard to seek for. Machine-made passementerie on top of conspicuous but sleazy material is always shoddy. Cut and fit are the two items of greatest importance in women's clothes as well as in men's. But fashion changes too rapidly to make value of material always wise expenditure for one of slender purse. Better usually have two dresses, each cut and made in the whim of the moment, than one which must be worn after the whim has become a freak. In men's clothes the opposite rule should be followed, since good style in men's clothes is unchanging. To buy things at sales is very much like buying things at an auction. If you really know what you want, and something about values, you can often do marvelously well. But if you are easily bewildered and know little of values, you are apt to spend your good money on trash. A woman of small means must either be, or learn to be, discriminatingly careful, or she would better have her clothes made at home, or if she is of model type, buy them ready-made. The ready-to-wear clothes in the misses department are growing every year better looking. Unfortunately, and for some inexplicable reason, the usual women's department does not compare in good taste in selection of models with the former. And it is unusual to find a dress that a lady of fashion would choose, except among the imported models, for which store prices are as a rule higher than those asked by the greatest dressmakers. Evening clothes are still usually unbuyable by the over-fastidious, except for a certain flapper type, and an undistinguished one at that. And the ultra-smart woman is still obliged to go to the private importers for her debutante daughter's ball dresses, as well as her own, or else into her own sewing-room. Fashion and fat. For years the thin, even the scrawny, have had everything their own way. The woman who is fat, or even plump, has a rather hopeless problem unless fashion goes to Turkey for its next inspiration, which is so unlikely it is almost possible. Two things the fat woman should avoid: big patterns and the stiff tailor-made. Fat women look better in feminine clothes that follow in the wake, never in the advance of modified fashion. Fat women should never wear elaborate clothes, or clothes in light colors, or heavily feathered hats. The tendency of fat is to take away from one's gracility. Therefore, any one inclined to be fat must be ultra-conservative in order to counteract the effect. Very tight clothes make fat people look fatter and thin people thinner. Satin is a bad material, since highlights are too shimmeringly accentuated. Heavy ankles, needless to say, should never be clothed in light stockings and dark shoes. Long pointed slippers accentuate a thick ankle, and so does a short skirt that has a straight hem. A ragged edge is most flattering. Dress, stockings, and slippers to match are unavoidable in evening dress, but when possible a thick ankle should have a dark stocking, or at least a slipper to match the stocking. People should select colors that go with their skin. And elderly women should not wear grass green, or royal blue, or purple, or any hard color that needs a faultless complexion. Swarthy skin always looks better in colors that have red or yellow in them. A very sallow person in pale blue or apple green looks like a well-developed case of jaundice. Pink and orchid are often very becoming to older women, and pale blue or yellow to those with fair skin. Because a woman is no longer young is no reason why she should wear perpetual black, unless she is fat. Clothes for traveling in Europe. Ideal traveling clothes are those which do not wrinkle or show rain spots, and to find which these are it is necessary to take a sample of each material, sprinkle it with water, and twist it to see how much abuse it will stand. Every woman knows what she likes best, and what she considers suitable. 2 alternating traveling dresses at least will be necessary, and 2 or 3 semi-evening dresses to put on for dinner. One very simple half-dinner dress of black, that has a combination of trimmings such as described earlier in this chapter, is ideally useful. Tourists do not put on evening clothes except in very fashionable centers, such as London, Paris, Monte Carlo, or Deauville, and then only if staying at an ultra-fashionable hotel. To be overdressed is always in bad taste, so that unless you are going to visit or make several-day stops, the one black evening dress suggested would answer every possible purpose. If you intend staying for a long time in one place, you take all of your season's clothes. And if you are going to visit in England, or to stay anywhere in the country, you will need country clothes, but not on ordinary touring. For motoring, space is precious, and clothes should be chosen with the object of packing into small dimensions. Motoring in Europe is cold. A very warm, long wrap is necessary. An old fur one is much the best, and a small, close hat that does not blow. Clothes in Paris. It is something like this. You have been hypnotized before, and you vow you won't be again. You make up your mind that you are going to get a black dress and a dark blue, and nothing else. You enter the lower reception hall, and mount the bronze balustraded stairs halfway, when already Mademoiselle Marie is aware of your approach. She greets you not only as though you are the only customer she has ever had, but as though your coming has saved, just saved in time, the prestige of the house. She tells you breathlessly that you are just in time to see the parade of models. She puts you where you may have an uninterrupted view. She then begins her greetings all over again by asking not alone after all the members of your family, and an extraordinarily long list of friends, but makes a solicitous inquiry after every dress that she has ever sold you. Did Madame like her white velvet? She coos. Was it not most useful? Was not her black lace charming? And the bisque cloth? Surely Madame has found great satisfaction in wearing the bisque cloth. But your ears are as stone to her blandishments. As a traveling suit, bisque-colored cloth had not been serviceable. Black lace with a cerise velvet under-petticoat might be effective at Armenonville, but it had seemed queer, to say the least, at the tennis match in August. No, you are at last immune from any of those sudden attacks of new-fashion fever that result in a loss of judgment. You open your little book and consult your list. I should like, you say, a navy blue serge trimmed with black braid or satin or something like that. A black crêpe de chine absolutely plain. I really need nothing else. You do not look at Mademoiselle Marie's crestfallen face. You watch the procession of models. But the old spell works. Besides zebra stripes and gold shot with cerise and purple, you think an emerald green charmeuse is really a perfect substitute for the plain black crêpe de chine you had in mind. You show that you are hypnotized by remarking absently, "It is the color of the grass." Instantly Mademoiselle Marie, the most skilled vendeuse in Paris, becomes radiant. "Listen, Madame," she says to you in that insinuating, confidential, yet humbly ingratiating manner of hers. "Let me explain, Madame. The idea of dress this year is altogether idyllic. Never has there been such charming return to nature. The great originator of our house has taken his suggestion, but yes, from the little animals of the fields and woods, from nature herself. Our dresses this year are intended to follow the example of all the little animals dressed to match their backgrounds. Is not that thought exquisite? Is not that delicious? Is an emerald lizard conspicuous in the tropics? Is a zebra even seen in patches of sun and shade? And in the snow, think of all the little animals who put on white coats in winter. Obviously white is the color intended for winter wear. And for the spring, green, emerald green assuredly. It is as Madame herself said, the color of the grass. The emerald charmeuse on a lawn in summer would be a poem of harmony, the cerise for afternoons at sunset, this orange shading into coral embroidery to wear beside the fire. The dark blue chiffon embroidered in silver is for night. All the colors that Madame at first found so bright, they are but the colors of a summer flower garden. What would Madame wear in a flower garden? Black crêpe de chine? Assuredly not. See this shell-pink chiffon, how lovely it would look under trees of apple blossoms. Blue serge, oh, what an escape! And now, if Madame will permit me to suggest, the green but assuredly, and the orange and coral, and the pink chiffon garden dress, and the zebra for traveling, and the blue and silver. However, to be serious, people do go to Paris to buy their clothes, beautiful clothes. Of course they do, especially those who go every year. But the woman who goes abroad perhaps every 4 or 5 years is apt to be deficient in a transatlantic sense. Match backgrounds like charming little animals? Never. Oh, a very big never again. And yet, the next time shall you not find it a temptation to go just out of curiosity to find out what the newest artfully enticing little tune of the Pied Pipers of Paris will be? End of Chapter 33, Part 2.